Well, interestingly enough, Road CC has been in contact with Shimano about the Hollowtech cranksets that have the problem where the corrosion starts inside and then they separate and then they fail. And quite often they fail while the riders are riding the bike. Anyway, their response was quite interesting. It was to go, nope, what problem? Anyway, let's roll that intro. Let's have a bit of a discussion about this denial of a well-existing problem in the cycling community. Well, there is actually an Instagram account that says thanks Shimano, where it's just picture after picture of these failed cranksets, the Hollowtechs. And what's actually happened is there's been moisture that's been captured or trapped, or there's a very small hole where the moisture can get in, and as the temperature changes, then the dew point changes inside that air space that's inside of the crankset. And what you do is you have the moisture going from an evaporation that's held within the air to free moisture in air that settles on, and this combination of the water and the dissimilar metals between the metal and the aluminium starts a corrosive process which is basically a form of electrolysis. So what normally happens is one of the materials becomes a sacrificial material. Generally that's probably the aluminium, and it starts to corrode, and obviously it gets to a point where the corrosion starts to put pressure on, and the bonding and the glue that fits between the metal crank part and the aluminium crank part then fails, and then when you're actually riding the bike, quite often the crankset fails. Now, this is one of the reasons why you should check it. And I know one of my fellow YouTubers over there in South Australia, he says, just check your cranksets if you've got Shimano cranksets fairly often. And if you see any signs of hairline cracks starting, he says you probably need to address it straight away. So that's some really good points there from Harley there over in South Australia. But the problem that we're having here is not that there is a problem, is that the manufacturer, Shimano, are kind of going, hey look, there's no design problem. And so what they're basically insinuating is the problem is due to the operation of the piece of equipment. Now, I mean, how can you operate a crankset any different than pedal it or something that is going to cause corrosion and make it fail? Obviously, that's got something to do with the way it's been made. And, if you made that out of a solid material, obviously it wouldn't corrode inside. It's because they've got a two-piece and they use a bonding technique to bond them together, that there's an airspace in there. Now, the airspace, if the bonding's not done correctly, can be exposed to wear, or it could be even sealed, but when they've sealed it, where it was done in the factory, there could have been a high moisture content in the factory, and then that moisture's trapped in there. Even though it's not free moisture, that can change due to your dew point and the temperature of the day, because I don't know if people understand, free moisture in air changes depending on the temperature. So the amount of moisture that the air can hold varies depending on the temperature of the day. So there definitely is a problem. I mean, anyone who says there's not a problem, and I know some people say, I don't know anyone who's had a crank fail, but that could be 5, could be 10 people, but we may be having a failure 1 in every 500, 1 in 1,000, maybe even 1 in 10,000. But if you're selling like 1 million cranksets, then that adds up to quite a few. And what people need to realize is that if the failure mode is below a certain amount, then it becomes an issue. And I would probably say that it's common enough for it to be an issue. So I think Shimano are really ducking and diving a little bit here and probably should step up to the plate. And I would have hoped that with the latest Dura-ace that they would have addressed this, but it's still using the Hollowtech technology. Now, I don't know if they're doing it a bit differently, but in reality they're calling it Hollowtech and it appears to be the same technology, which is a little bit disappointing. They haven't really addressed that, and I would have probably have liked to have addressed that more than some of the other upgrades that they've done on the system, because this problem with these cranks has been around over, if I believe correctly, 3 model changes. So it's quite a significant problem. Well, anyway, guys, you let me know down in the comments what you think about this Hollowtech and the problems they're having with them failing and the corrosion problems. And also, what do you think about Shimano basically kind of going, hey, look, there's not a design problem, guys. I don't know what you're talking about. Anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it. Catch you next vid. Cheers.